Scenario Manager is a what-if analysis tool that enables us to create and save multiple sets of input values as scenarios. We can then switch between these scenarios to view how the results, which are the output values, change. Here is one of Ishan's scenarios. He has 3 inputs and wants to see how average monthly revenue results are impacted by these inputs. Now, when we create scenarios, we have to define changing cells and a results cell. The changing cells will be the input values that vary in each scenario. In our scenario, let's decide to keep average spend per order constant and vary the total orders per month and discount rate values. The result cell will be our output value, and this must contain a formula that's based on the changing cells. Excel will then auto-calculate our result given the different scenarios. This is the predefined formula in cell B6. All our cell references are absolute, so that our formula will work if we copy our results value cell at any time. Now, before we launch Scenario Manager, it's good practice to name our input variable cells. This makes it easier to identify changing cells in each scenario. Let's name cell B3 by clicking on it, going to the name box and typing in average spend and press enter. Cell B4 will be total orders, cell B5 will be named discount rate, and B6 will be average revenue. We're ready to begin. To create a scenario, we must first select our changing cells. Now remember, if changing cells are non-adjacent, we can just select them by holding down the Control key as we click on them. Now on the Data ribbon, click on the What If Analysis command and then Scenario Manager. This is the Scenario Manager dialog box. By default, there are no scenarios defined. We can add new scenarios by clicking the Add button. In this first field, we have to give each scenario a descriptive name. Often, people use Scenario Manager to find out the best case, worst case, or most likely scenario. Let's use this as inspiration and name our first scenario 10% discount best case. In the comment box, we can add notes about our scenario if we want. By default, the comment box includes a comment on who created the scenario and when. We can choose to remove or edit this if we wish. We can also just leave our comment box blank. At the bottom, there are protection checkboxes that we can use to prevent users from making changes and also enable us to hide the scenarios when the worksheet is protected. When ready to add your scenario, just click OK. In the next dialog box, we have to input the values for discount rate and total orders per month based on the scenario we have just defined. We know immediately what to fill in because we had named our changing cells. If we hadn't named them, we would only be able to see their cell addresses here, and it can be easy to make mistakes when entering values. For this scenario, let's enter 2,500 for total orders and 10% for discount rate. Now we can click OK. Let's now add the worst case scenario for a 10% discount. After naming our scenario, we can click OK and then enter the values for our changing cells. In the worst case, our total orders will only increase marginally, so let's go with 2,100 and our discount rate is still 10%. Click OK and let's create one last scenario, which will be a 15% discount best case scenario. So that's our name, and then our changing values are 3,500 and 15%. When you're done, just click OK to go back to the Scenario Manager dialog box. You will see a list of all the scenarios you have added. To see the impact of a scenario, just double-click on it or select it and click Show. If you look at your original table, you will see how the changing cells update to reflect your scenario and the output value changes to show you the average revenue per month under each scenario. This way, Ishan can now run through the various scenarios and see how average revenue would change. Now we can add, delete, or edit scenarios at any time using these commands. When you edit scenarios, you can also edit the changing cells. For example, if Ishan thought higher discounts would encourage not just more orders, but increase average spend, we could add cell B3 to our changing cells. Because we had named our average spend cell before starting, its name will be displayed here. Now, if you have defined scenarios on other worksheets or workbooks, you can click on Merge and Excel will copy them and merge them with the scenarios you have just defined so that you can toggle between them easily. In addition to this, we can also display the results of all our scenarios side by summarizing them. This is a very useful feature. Just click Summary and then you can choose whether you want a scenario summary in the form of a regular table or a pivot table report. Let's stick with Scenario Summary. Your result cell should be the cell you are interested in, which is our average revenue cell B6. When you click OK, your summary table will be generated in a new worksheet. Scenario names will be displayed across the top, and we will see the changing cells and result cells for each scenario. Now the table will also include a current values column, which is simply the value of changing cells at the time the report was generated. From this scenario summary, you can immediately see which scenario results in the highest revenue and how much it is. Now if you notice, the summary table has numbers and minus symbols around it. These are grouping levels that Excel has automatically added to our table. Grouping levels are helpful because they allow us to expand and collapse our table view based on what we want to focus on. For example, if we want to just see the results values for each scenario, we can collapse the changing cells group by clicking on the minus sign, and then to view it again, just click on the plus to expand. Scenario Manager is helpful because it allows us to compare multiple scenarios so easily, and we can include up to a maximum of 32 changing cells. We can then generate a scenario summary table that will give us a useful bird's eye view of how changing scenarios impacts results.